They say the worst moments in your life don't come with thunder or warning, they arrive quietly, like a folded letter under your door. I almost stepped on it that morning. It was a Friday, early May, one of those clear, crisp mornings in Chapel Hill when the air smells like promise. The kind of morning where you think maybe everything's going to be okay, even if it's not. My wife, Emily, was still asleep upstairs, her arms slung across the empty space in our bed where our 7-year-old son, Mason, used to crawl in after a nightmare. He didn't anymore. He was growing fast. And I was proud of the boy he was becoming. But that letter, it changed the shape of everything. It wasn't in an envelope. Just a single page, folded once, tucked neatly under our red front door like it had been slipped there by someone in the dark. No return address. No name. At first, I thought it might be a neighborhood flyer. The HOA was always dropping off something, notices about lawn maintenance, community watch meetings. I picked it up with my coffee in hand, unfolding it casually, halfway through my first sip. What I read punched the air right out of me. He is not your son. Ask your wife. That was it. 7 words. No punctuation. No explanation. Just an accusation wrapped in silence. I stood there for a long time. My heart thudding in my chest like it knew something before I did. I read it again, then again, my eyes scanning the words like they'd change if I stared hard enough. But they didn't. I looked up at the street through the window beside the door. No sign of anyone. Just the garbage truck 2 houses down, the mailman parked at the corner, and Mrs. Chapman walking her terrier in her floral robe like every morning. I thought about crumpling the letter, shoving it deep into the trash before anyone saw. But my hands wouldn't move. My legs barely held me up. Inside the house, everything was still. Too still. I didn't confront Emily right away. I watched her over breakfast instead, her usual routine. Wavy chestnut hair pulled into a loose bun, no makeup, soft voice. She was cutting strawberries for Mason's cereal, humming something from the radio. Like nothing was wrong. I studied her face as she leaned down to kiss our son's forehead, the way she laughed when he said he didn't need to wear his jacket because he was strong like Dad. And it all looked so normal. Too normal. Something wrong? She asked, catching me staring. I shook my head and forced a smile. No, just tired. But I wasn't tired. I was unraveling. I dropped Mason off at school like always. We practiced spelling words on the drive and talked about his upcoming baseball game. He wanted me to help him practice his pitching that night. I told him I'd be there. I meant it. But that letter, those words, they wrapped around my brain like barbed wire. I spent the rest of the day pretending to work from home, but I didn't log into a single meeting. I kept the letter on my desk, staring at it like it might give me a clue. A name. A hint. Anything. Instead, it just sat there. Quiet and cruel. By late afternoon, something inside me snapped. I couldn't take the silence anymore. I needed answers. Even if it wrecked me. I waited until Mason was upstairs playing Minecraft. I found Emily in the laundry room, folding towels like it was just another Friday. I held the letter in my hand, my knuckles white. Who left this? I asked. She looked up, puzzled. What is it? I handed it to her. Her fingers touched mine, and she paused. Just a beat. But I felt the hesitation. She unfolded the letter, and the blood drained from her face. She didn't say a word. Emily. I asked again, quieter now. Is it true? Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. Her hands started to shake. I had imagined a lot of reactions. Anger. Denial. Maybe even tears. But nothing prepared me for what she did next. She ran. She dropped the letter like it was burning her and bolted past me, through the kitchen, out the back door, barefoot, her car keys still on the hook. I chased her down the porch steps. Emily. I yelled. Stop. Talk to me. But she didn't. She ran down the side of the house, around the front, and disappeared into the street. I didn't follow. I just stood there, stunned, my neighbors' eyes following her sprint from their windows. By the time I made it back inside, the silence was unbearable. The rest of the evening blurred together. I called her phone. No answer. I texted. Nothing. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I went upstairs to Mason's room, and he looked up at me with those wide, innocent eyes, asking if Mom was picking up pizza like she promised. I lied and told him she was just running an errand. I stayed up all night waiting. Watching the street through the blinds. Imagining every possible explanation, every possible version of truth that might be less than what it seemed. But none of them made sense. None of them made her run like that. By morning, she still hadn't come back. It's been 2 days now. Her phone's still off. Her sister in Raleigh hasn't heard from her. Her job called, asking if she was sick. I said yes, even though I had no idea. I haven't told Mason anything yet. I don't even know what there is to tell. But the letter sits in front of me now, on the kitchen table where she left it. I keep thinking about the way she looked when she read it. Like she saw a ghost. Like she'd known this day might come. There's something else. Something she's hiding. That letter, whoever wrote it, they knew. They knew everything. And I need to know too. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I laid on the couch, fully dressed, one eye on my phone screen that never lit up, the other staring at the ceiling like it could give me answers. Every sound outside made me bolt upright. Every passing car made my heart jump. But Emily never came back. I kept trying to convince myself that this wasn't happening. That maybe it was all a misunderstanding, a cruel prank, or maybe she got scared and needed space. But none of it explained the letter. None of it explained her face when she read it. She knew. She knew and ran. By Sunday morning, Mason was starting to ask questions. "Where's Mom?" he said, sitting across from me at the breakfast table, his hair messy, still in his Spider-Man pajamas. I froze, holding the edge of my coffee cup midair. She just had to go somewhere, buddy. She'll be back soon. Did she go to Nana's? No. Is she mad at me? No. Never. I reached over the table and ruffled his hair, trying to smile. She just needs a little time. He looked at me for a long moment, like he could sense the truth hiding in my voice, but he didn't press. I was grateful for that. But I also hated myself for lying to him. By noon, I called the police. I didn't want to, but something in me said I had to. She'd been gone for over 48 hours, no contact, no sign of where she went. I wasn't filing a missing persons report out of anger, I was terrified something had happened. The officer at the station asked the usual questions: when did I last see her, what was she wearing, does she have a history of mental illness, drug use, running away? No, I said, again and again. She's never done anything like this. He took the report but didn't sound overly concerned. Adults leave when they want to, he reminded me. She hadn't left any sign of violence. No threats. Just vanished. Quietly. Before hanging up, I asked, if she was running from something, would you be able to find out who sent that letter? He paused. What letter? I hesitated. There was a note left under our door. Right before she left. I think it triggered something. Do you still have it? Yes. Then bring it in. We'll take a look. But don't get your hopes up. At the station, they took a photocopy of the letter. The officer, Detective Mark Collier, a middle-aged guy with a shaved head and a quiet voice, read it once, then again. That's all it said. Yeah. Just that. No signature. No handwriting I recognize. Could be someone messing with you, he said. Jealous ex, neighbor with a grudge, who knows? Or someone who knows something, I said, barely containing the edge in my voice. He didn't dismiss it, but he didn't make any promises either. We'll keep it on file. If she doesn't show up in a few more days, we'll dig deeper. That wasn't good enough for me. When I got home, I went into the garage. Emily had always been private. She kept an old file box in the corner of the top shelf, receipts, documents, birthday cards. I pulled it down, feeling guilty but desperate. I went through it page by page. Credit card statements, hospital bills, a few old letters from her late father. Nothing unusual. But then I found something, a sealed envelope, unmarked, tucked into the very bottom of the box. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a birth certificate. Mason's birth certificate. My name was listed as the father. But the hospital wasn't the one I remembered. I was there when he was born. I remember the room, the nurse's name, the smell of disinfectant and baby powder. But this document said he was born at a private women's clinic in Greensboro. Not the hospital in Chapel Hill. Why lie? The date was right. But nothing else made sense. Was I not there for the birth? Or had the document been replaced? My head started to spin. I sat down in the garage, right there on the cold concrete floor, the certificate in my hands, the silence pressing down on me. Who forged it? And why? That night, I couldn't stop pacing. The house felt unfamiliar, like someone had rearranged it while I wasn't looking. Every photo on the wall suddenly felt like a lie. Every memory suspect. Around midnight, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called Emily's old friend. Her name was Rachel, and they'd been inseparable in college, maid of honor at our wedding, frequent holiday guest. But after she moved to Asheville, they drifted apart. Or so I thought. Rachel picked up on the third ring, her voice groggy. Hello. Rachel. It's me. Thomas. A pause. Tom. Wow. It's been a while. Is everything okay? No. Not really. I told her about the letter. About Emily running. About the birth certificate. I could hear the hesitation in her breath, the weight of something she didn't want to say. Rachel, please. I'm not calling to accuse anyone. I'm just trying to make sense of what's happening. Silence. Then, she said, Tom, there's something you should know, but I don't know if it's my place. You have to tell me. Please. Another long pause. Then, do you remember someone named Jason? The name hit me like a car crash. Jason Benton. He was Emily's high school boyfriend. They'd dated for years. Broke up right before college. She always brushed it off, first love, nothing serious. But I remembered meeting him once. Years ago. At a bookstore, randomly. He was tall, confident, wore a sheriff's badge. We shook hands. And something in his eyes lingered longer than it should have. Why are you bringing up Jason? Because, Rachel said, her voice cracking, he reached out to Emily last year. Said he was moving back to Chapel Hill. They met for coffee. I told her it was a bad idea, but I think they stayed in touch. My chest went cold. Do you think? I don't know. But she was distant after that. I thought it was stress. I didn't push. Why didn't you tell me this? Because I didn't want to believe it either. I thanked her, hung up, and just sat there. Jason. A man I hadn't thought of in years. The only other man who could have. No. I couldn't say it. Not yet. Monday morning came with rain. I dropped Mason off at school, kissed his head, told him I loved him. And then I drove straight to the sheriff's department. Because I had a name now. And if Jason Benton knew something, I was going to find out. They say when a man's pushed far enough, there's no telling what he might do. I wasn't sure if I'd crossed that line yet, but I could see it on the horizon. Close. Too close. That Monday morning, I drove out to the Orange County Sheriff's Department. The sky was still heavy with rain, windshield wipers fighting a losing battle as I turned into the lot. I sat there for a moment, watching the steady downpour, palms sweating against the wheel. Jason Benton. The name was a ghost from a chapter of Emily's life I thought I'd closed long ago. But it had come knocking again, and this time, it might be holding the key to everything. Inside the station, everything smelled like stale coffee and wet carpet. The front desk officer gave me a once-over and asked what I needed. I'd like to speak with Deputy Jason Benton, I said, voice steady, rehearsed. Is this in regard to a case? No. It's personal. She raised an eyebrow, tapped on her keyboard, then picked up the phone. A few hushed words passed before she nodded. He's got 10 minutes. She pointed me toward a hallway on the right. Third door down. I thanked her, though my stomach was twisted in knots. The door to his office was already open. He stood when he saw me, tall, broad-shouldered, and older than I remembered, with silver at his temples and that same smug composure he always wore like a badge. His uniform was crisp, his smile rehearsed. "Thomas," he said, like he was greeting an old buddy at a reunion. "What brings you in?" I stepped inside. "You've got a minute?" "For you." "Sure." He gestured to a seat across from his desk. I stayed standing. "I'll get to the point," I said. "You've been in contact with Emily." "My wife." His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes flickered. Brief. Almost imperceptible. "She told you that?" "No. She didn't tell me anything. Because she ran off 2 days ago. After someone left a letter under our door saying I'm not the father of my son. That got him." His smile cracked, just slightly. "Do you know anything about that?" I asked. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "Look, Tom. I don't know who sent the letter. But yes, I did meet with Emily a while back. She reached out, not me. Said she wanted to talk about the past. Clear the air. That's it. We had coffee. Once. Talked about life. She told me about you. About Mason. Seemed happy. Did she tell you he might be your son?" His face tightened. Just a flicker. But he didn't deny it. "I didn't come here to fight," I said. "I came for the truth." He stood slowly. Walked around the desk. Close enough to make me clench my fists. "Tom, I don't know what Emily's been telling you, but I'm not the villain here. We dated in high school. She broke things off when we both went to college. That's ancient history. Then why was she seeing you behind my back?" He hesitated. "We talked. A few times." She was conflicted. "You know that, right?" "She's always been a little careful," I snapped. "You don't get to talk about her like that." He held up his hands. "I'm not trying to start anything. But I think she was afraid." "Afraid of what?" He hesitated again. Longer this time. Then he walked to his file cabinet, pulled out a folder, and dropped it on the desk. "I shouldn't be showing you this. But if it helps you understand." Inside was a paternity test requisition form. Not completed, but dated just 3 weeks ago. Her name was on it. No doctor's signature yet. Just a patient intake sheet. "She came to me," he said. "Told me she was scared. Said she wasn't sure who Mason's biological father was." I stared at the page. My stomach hollowed out. "She said she'd always tried to push the doubt away," he went on. "But it was eating her up inside. Especially now that Mason's getting older, starting to ask questions about where he gets his blue eyes from." "You and her don't have blue eyes, do you?" I didn't answer. "She said you deserved the truth. But she didn't know how to give it to you." I closed the folder. "And what did you tell her?" "I told her that if there's a chance, even the slightest chance, that he's mine. I want to know. Just like you do." I turned and walked out. That night, I sat in the kitchen long after Mason had gone to bed. The house was too quiet. I stared at a single photo of the 3 of us on the fridge, me holding Mason at the park, Emily's arms wrapped around us, all smiles. Had it always been a lie? Or did the lie come later, and she just didn't know how to undo it? I poured myself a drink. First in years. It burned going down. But not as much as the questions in my chest. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. 1 new voicemail. I hit play. "Tom, it's me." Emily's voice. Raspy. Tired. Like she'd been crying. "I'm sorry. I don't even know where to start. I didn't mean for you to find out that way. I never wanted to hurt you. I swear. But when the letter came, everything just collapsed inside me. I couldn't breathe. A pause. Then. I didn't run because I was guilty. I ran because I was ashamed. I've been holding this secret for so long that I forgot how to live without it. I didn't cheat on you, Tom. I was pregnant before we got back together. And I didn't know. Not for sure. Not then. My breath caught in my throat. I thought Mason was yours. I wanted him to be. And when you stepped up, when you became his father, I couldn't take that away from you. Another pause. I'm staying with someone for now. I'll call again soon. Just tell Mason I love him. Please. Click. The voicemail ended, but her voice kept echoing in my mind. I didn't cheat on you. I was already pregnant. What did that even mean? Emily and I had reconnected after grad school. She'd been distant that summer. Distracted. We got back together fast. It had always felt like fate, two old friends finding each other again. But now I wasn't so sure. The next morning, I drove to my parents' place and left Mason with my mom. Told her I needed a day to clear my head. She didn't ask questions, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Instead of going home, I drove. No destination. Just roads. Thinking. I ended up back in Chapel Hill, near campus. That's where Emily and I reconnected. Where she first told me she was pregnant. Where she cried and said she didn't want to do it alone. I remembered how I hugged her, how I promised her she wasn't alone anymore. That was almost 9 years ago. Did she know even then? Was she afraid I'd leave if she told me the truth? I parked near the bookstore where I first met Jason. A memory crept up, his eyes lingering too long on Mason's stroller. The way he shook my hand with a little too much strength. Did he know back then? Did he always suspect? Everything suddenly felt like a carefully choreographed lie. A house of cards I hadn't noticed was swaying. And now it was falling. Fast. I returned home that evening to find something unexpected. A small package on the front step. No return address. Inside, a USB drive and a folded note. The note said only 4 words. You deserve the truth. It's strange what fear can do to a man. Make your hands tremble over something as small as a flash drive. Make your heart pound louder than any storm outside. I must have sat at that kitchen table for over an hour, just staring at the thing. For words looping in my mind like a broken record. You deserve the truth. Eventually, I slid the USB into my laptop. The screen flickered once, then showed a single video file. No label. No date. Just a cold digital timestamp. I pressed play. The video was grainy. Handheld. The kind of footage people don't mean to show, but always ends up being the most honest. It opened on a familiar place, Emily's apartment from a decade ago. Before we got married. Before Mason. Before everything. She sat on her old gray couch, her hair shorter, her eyes heavier. She looked younger. But already tired. Across from her, slightly out of frame, sat someone I couldn't see. But I knew the voice. Jason. Why are you recording this? Emily asked in the video, her voice uneasy. I think, in case you need to remember. Or in case you want to show it to someone else someday. The truth has a way of getting lost, Em. She sighed, rubbing her palms together nervously. You're not going to like what I'm going to say. I don't care, Jason said. Just say it. Another pause. Then Emily leaned forward and said it. I think I'm pregnant. The camera jostled slightly. Jason didn't respond right away. And it's mine, he asked eventually, voice flat. I don't know, she whispered. It could be. It could be Tom's. I was with both of you, not at the same time, but close enough that I didn't keep track. I didn't want to. A deep breath from Jason. And he doesn't know you were with me again. No, she said. We weren't technically together then. I thought it was over. You and I, it just happened. Then Tom called. He said he missed me. That he wanted to try again. She laughed bitterly in the video. I never thought he'd propose. But when he did, it just felt like everything was finally falling into place. Like maybe fate was giving me a second chance. Jason didn't speak. I found out I was pregnant a few weeks later, Emily continued. I told Tom it was his. I didn't want to dig into it. I just wanted it to be true. The screen froze there, her face somewhere between guilt and relief. Then the video cut out. I sat there in the dark, the laptop humming gently beneath my fingers. She knew. All these years, she knew. She had lived in that gray space, between a lie and a half-truth, and called it home. And I had helped her build it. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I dropped Mason at school, then drove out to the address Emily had called from on her voicemail, an old friend's place in San Clemente, on a quiet cul-de-sac overlooking the sea. She opened the door slowly, as if expecting someone else. When she saw me, her breath caught. Tom. I stepped inside without asking. She didn't stop me. The house was quiet. Clean. Too clean. Like someone had tried to erase all signs of feeling. We stood there for a moment, just staring at each other. I saw the video, I said. Her eyes closed. Her chin trembled. You sent it. She shook her head. No. I left that with my therapist years ago. Just in case. I guess she thought now was the time. I looked away. So it's true. She nodded. Yes. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. I wasn't lying when I said I didn't cheat on you, she added quickly. It happened before we got back together. But I was still with him, emotionally, when I said yes to you. And that's a betrayal too, I know. I sat down on the edge of a chair near the window. You had 1,000 chances to tell me. 9 years worth of mornings. Bedside conversations. Father's days. I know, she whispered. Why didn't you? She swallowed. Her voice was barely audible. Because you loved him like he was yours. From the very first moment. You were the only steady thing in both our lives. And I couldn't risk shattering that. My jaw clenched. But you let me live a lie. I didn't want to lose you. The tears came then. Quiet. Not dramatic. Just the silent guilt of a woman who'd been walking barefoot over broken glass for too long. I've hated myself for it, she said. But I couldn't undo it without losing everything. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just sat there, hands folded, staring at a spot on the floor. Because the truth was, I understood. I had loved her so completely, so blindly, that I never thought to question. And Mason. Mason was never a doubt in my heart. Even now, knowing he might not be mine by blood, he was mine by something bigger. Something unexplainable. And yet something in me had cracked. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even betrayal. It was grief. For the version of my life I thought I had. For the years spent pretending everything was real. I stood after a while. I need space. She nodded, tears still streaking her cheeks. I'll give you as much as you need. I don't know what this means for us. But I need time. And I need answers. I'll take the test, she said. Officially. I'll do it. And if Jason is Mason's biological father, I'll find a way to explain it to him. But you should know something. I paused at the door. No matter what the test says, Mason thinks you're his dad. You always have been. You're the one who showed up. The one who taught him to ride a bike. The one who sang to him when he had nightmares. None of that changes. I looked at her then. At the woman I once would have died for. She wasn't the villain I wanted her to be. But she also wasn't the woman I married. That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a small inn just outside of town. I needed distance. From her. From the house. From everything. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft buzz of the air conditioner. What if the test came back and Jason was the father? Would Mason start to resemble him more and more each year? Would I see Jason smile when Mason laughed? Could I live with that? More importantly, could I forgive her? At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Just one line. You don't know the whole story. Attached, a photo. It was grainy, taken from a distance. But I recognized the figures immediately. Jason. And a woman I didn't recognize. They were standing in front of a hospital. He had his arm around her. Her face was pale. She was visibly pregnant. The date on the image? 8 years ago. There's something that happens when everything you thought was solid starts to melt beneath you. You stop trusting even your own memories. You replay conversations in your head like old cassette tapes, listening for missed cues, subtle lies, pauses that meant more than they should have. That photo, the one sent to me at 2:14 a.m., was one of those cracks. A fracture in the version of reality I'd been desperately clinging to. Jason, arm around a woman I didn't recognize. Standing in front of a hospital. The woman was pregnant. And the date? 8 years ago. Around the same time Mason was born. At first, I thought it was some kind of sick mistake. Maybe a prank. Maybe even a warning. But the photo didn't lie. The date was embedded in the image metadata. I checked it twice. So I called him. I don't know why I thought he'd pick up. I hadn't heard his voice in years. Not since the awkward wedding toast he gave when Emily and I got married. He was her close friend, and even though I'd always suspected there was history there, I never asked. I didn't want to. He didn't pick up the first time. Or the second. On the third try, a voice came through. Groggy. Defensive. Yeah. It's Tom. Pause. Then, Tom. Jesus. You all right, man? No. Not really. My voice was dry, like I'd swallowed dust. We need to talk. In person. He hesitated. Now. I'm driving to you. Jason lived in Westwood, not far from the hospital in the photo. The ride was quiet, just me and the hum of the engine, punctuated by memories I didn't want and questions I couldn't silence. When I got there, he looked like hell. Hair unkempt, shirt wrinkled, eyes red-rimmed like he hadn't slept in days. Come in, he said, rubbing his jaw. The place smelled like beer and takeout. It was the kind of apartment that said, I stopped caring. We sat on opposite ends of a sagging couch. He didn't offer me a drink. I didn't want one. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo. He went still. Where did you get that? Someone sent it to me. He stared at it for a long time. Then sighed and leaned back, fingers steepled against his mouth. Her name was Claire. Who was she? He looked away. Someone I met after Emily and I ended things. She was a nurse at that hospital. We weren't together long. A few months. But she got pregnant. I leaned forward. So you had another kid? He exhaled hard. No. She lost the baby. Complications at 6 months. It nearly destroyed her. And me. We drifted after that. She moved to Seattle. I haven't heard from her in years. I didn't know what to say. I'd come looking for answers, maybe even a fight. But all I found was a man haunted by something else entirely. So Mason isn't mine, he interrupted. I never had proof, but I knew. I just knew. But the video was real, he said, looking me straight in the eye. She told me she might be pregnant. But later she said it was yours. I never pressed. I figured if she wanted to believe that, I should let her. My mind was spinning. So you let me raise a kid that might have been yours, while you went off and started a life with someone else. He looked genuinely hurt. There was no life, Tom. I've been floating ever since. You think I didn't wonder? You think I didn't look at pictures of Mason and try to see myself in him? He paused, voice lowering. But every time I did, all I saw was you. We sat in silence. Not friends. Not enemies. Just two men chained to the same ghost. Someone's playing with us, I finally said. Jason nodded slowly. Yeah. Someone who wanted you to think he was mine. Any idea who? He scratched his chin. Claire worked at that hospital. The same hospital where Emily gave birth. I blinked. Are you saying? I'm saying the timelines are too damn close to be coincidence. And if someone's trying to dig up dirt after all these years, maybe they know something we don't. I left Jason's apartment with more questions than I had going in. And a new destination. The hospital. St. Mary's Medical Center was quiet when I arrived. The kind of sterile quiet that made you feel like even your thoughts were too loud. I didn't expect to find much. It had been nearly a decade. But when I asked for records on Emily's labor and delivery under my name as her spouse, the receptionist raised an eyebrow, checked her computer, and then leaned in. Sir. I'm afraid that file is restricted. Restricted? She nodded. Flagged as sealed. Access only with legal authorization or written permission. I swallowed. Why would that be? I can't say, sir. But I'm her husband. The woman gave me a practiced smile. You'll need to speak with the administrator. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just about a paternity test anymore. Someone had buried something deeper. And they hadn't just sealed the file, they were trying to make sure I never found out. I stepped outside into the parking lot and dialed the only person left who might have answers. Emily. She picked up on the second ring. Tom. Her voice was cautious. Hopeful. We need to talk. Now. We met at a quiet park near the beach. Mason was still at school, and for once, the world around us seemed suspended in calm. Emily looked different. Older. Like the weight of the past had finally found her shoulders. I talked to Jason, I said, standing instead of sitting. I figured you would. He says the baby Claire was carrying wasn't his. That she lost it. But the timelines, the hospital. She looked away. And then, after a pause, she said the words that turned my blood cold. There's something I never told you. I crossed my arms. Now's the time. She sat down on a bench and clasped her hands. When I gave birth, something happened. I lost a lot of blood. They had to perform an emergency transfusion. You weren't there, it happened fast. Jason was listed as my emergency contact. Not you. My throat tightened. Why? Because we hadn't fixed everything yet, remember? We were barely back together when I went into labor. I just forgot to change the forms. I didn't think it mattered. I sat down beside her, fists clenched. What are you saying? I'm saying. Jason had access. To everything. To me. To Mason. He was there before you. And after. I looked at her. Really looked. You think Jason did something? She shook her head. I don't know. But someone did. Because that file wasn't sealed when Mason was born. I saw it. I signed it. There was nothing secret. Until later. She turned to me, her voice cracking. I think someone changed it. A silence fell between us, more deafening than any argument we'd ever had. So many years. So many lies buried under good intentions, bad timing, and unspoken fears. Then we find out who, I said quietly. Emily nodded. For Mason. But as I got back in my car, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Another text. You're getting warmer. But some truths should stay buried. Attached was a photo. This time, it was me. Me and Mason, at a Dodgers game 2 years ago. Someone had been watching us. You think you're the main character in your own story, until someone shows you the pages you didn't write. That picture. Me and Mason. Dodgers game, 2 years ago. I remembered that day clearly, sunny, no clouds, Mason had cotton candy all over his shirt, and we laughed so hard when the fly ball landed 3 rows behind us. But someone else had been there too. Watching. Framing the moment through a lens like it wasn't mine to keep. They'd been watching us for years. The message hit harder than any punch. You're getting warmer. But some truths should stay buried. A threat disguised as advice. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the living room couch, the house too quiet without Mason, who was still at Emily's sister's. His Lego tower remained half-built on the coffee table. His sneakers by the door, crooked. He always kicked them off unevenly. I didn't even know what to feel anymore, rage, sadness, fear, all twisted together like wires behind a broken panel. I needed answers. I needed to know who sent the picture. Who was behind the sealed files, the message, the unraveling. And I had a name. Claire. I started digging the next morning. Claire Henson. Former nurse at St. Mary's. No known social media presence anymore. Her LinkedIn page hadn't been updated in 6 years, but it listed a move to Seattle. I made some calls. Pretended to be from HR, conducting an employment reference. Got a clinic name. By noon, I was booking a last-minute flight to Seattle. I didn't tell Emily. I couldn't. Not yet. Seattle was wet and gray, but I didn't care. I rented a car and drove straight to the address I'd pulled from a patient records database I probably shouldn't have accessed. A small brick duplex on the edge of Ballard, trees lining the street like silent sentinels. I sat in the car for 10 minutes before I worked up the nerve to knock. Claire answered on the third knock. She looked older, thinner than I remembered from the photo Jason had shown me. Time hadn't been gentle. Neither, it seemed, had life. She stared at me for a long moment. Tom. My heart skipped. I need to talk to you. She didn't slam the door. Didn't invite me in, either. I'm not sure that's a good idea. I think someone's trying to destroy my family. Her eyes flickered. That got her attention. I'm not here to blame you, I added quickly. But you're in this somehow. Maybe not directly, but someone thinks you are. She stepped outside, pulling the door halfway shut behind her. She crossed her arms tightly. I told him not to call me, she said flatly. I told him years ago. Jason. She nodded. After I lost the baby, he tried to stay in touch. At first I thought it was sweet. Then it got strange. He kept asking me questions about timelines, medical files, nurses I worked with, like he was trying to dig something up. I frowned. Why? I think he suspected something happened during Emily's labor. Something that didn't match up. Like what? She looked down. There was another nurse. A temp. She wasn't on the official staff. Just a contractor. But she was there that night. For both births, mine and Emily's. Her name was Lila. That name hit something in my memory. Emily had mentioned a Lila once. A kind nurse who held her hand during contractions. Do you know where she is? Claire shook her head. No one does. She disappeared after that contract ended. No forwarding info, nothing. Hospital didn't even have a full background check on her. We didn't think much of it. Temps come and go. But Jason, he thought she'd switched something. I swallowed. Like babies. Claire didn't answer. She didn't need to. I got back to my hotel that night with a folder full of nothing and a heart full of dread. If there was even a chance Mason wasn't Emily's son, or mine. It was a question too big to ask. Too cruel to test. I sat at the edge of the bed, phone in hand, debating whether to call Emily. I didn't have answers yet. Only fears. I needed proof before I said anything more. I decided to call the only person who knew how to deal with this kind of mess. My sister, Katie. Katie was a criminal attorney in Boston. Sharp, cynical, and allergic to drama unless it involved courtrooms. But if anyone could help me figure out what the hell I'd walked into, it was her. She answered on the first ring. Tom. I told her everything. The letter. The photo. Jason. Claire. Lila. She listened in silence until I finished. Then she said 5 words that chilled me to the bone. I think you need a lawyer. I laughed. Katie, that's what you are. I'm not joking. Someone's covering something up. And if there's a missing nurse, sealed hospital records, and surveillance photos of your kid, that's more than a messy divorce. That's premeditated. Premeditated what? Manipulation. Fraud. Possibly kidnapping, depending on what you find. You're in deep, Tom. And if someone wants this truth buried, you need to be very careful how you dig. Back home, Emily was waiting for me on the porch when I pulled into the driveway the next night. You went to see her, didn't you? I didn't lie. Yes. She looked like she'd been crying. Her hair was pulled back, sweater wrapped tight around her frame like armor. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to accuse anyone without knowing the truth. Not you. Not Jason. Not her. She nodded. Then, with a quiet voice, she asked, "And what if the truth is worse than anything we imagined?" I stepped closer. "Then we face it. Together." She looked up at me, eyes brimming. "I'm scared, Tom." "I am too." She stepped into my arms, and for the first time in days, we weren't fighting. We were just two people clinging to each other in the middle of a storm. That night, I got another message. Same unknown number. "Your sister is right. You should be careful who you trust." Attached was an audio recording. My own voice. From the call with Katie. Every word, every pause. They'd been listening. I stared at the phone in disbelief, nausea creeping into my throat. They weren't just watching. They were inside. Inside my phone. Inside my life. This wasn't paranoia anymore. This was war. In the dead silence of the house, Emily whispered, "Whoever this is, they're playing for keeps." And that's when the next text came through. "You're not Mason's father. But you already knew that. The real question is, where is your son now? They say the truth sets you free." Whoever said that clearly never had their reality ripped apart piece by piece until nothing made sense anymore. Until the very idea of who you are, your role, your family, your identity, shattered so violently it left only echoes in its place. I stood there in the kitchen, phone in hand, Emily frozen beside me, and I read that last message over and over again like a dare. "You're not Mason's father. But you already knew that. The real question is, where is your son now?" At first, I thought it was a metaphor. Some twisted mind game meant to break me. But Emily. She went pale. Her knees buckled, and she sank into the kitchen chair like her entire skeleton had gone soft. "What the hell does that mean?" I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. She didn't speak at first. Just stared at the fridge like it was going to answer for her. Then she whispered. "There was a mix-up during labor. I always felt it. Something wasn't right." My whole body went cold. "You never told me that." I tried. But what was I supposed to say? "Hey Tom, I think the baby we brought home might not be ours." I had no proof. Just a feeling. And then Mason grew. He looked like you. Acted like you. I thought maybe I was just crazy. Hormonal. Paranoid. And Jason. I said slowly. "Did he know?" She looked up at me, ashamed. "Jason started digging years ago. After his own miscarriage with Claire. He asked questions about the hospital. He found records, discrepancies, and then he brought it to me. Said he thought Mason might not be yours. But not mine or yours." I asked. "You mean Mason might not be either of ours?" She nodded slowly. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "He wanted to take it to court. Do a quiet test. I begged him not to. I was scared of what it might uncover. I told him I couldn't live with it if Mason got taken from us. That maybe it was better not to know." "And he listened to you?" "No," she said bitterly. "He kept going. That's why he left. Not because of an affair. Because I wouldn't face it. And he got too close to something." I remembered Jason's fear. The way he looked at me in the bar. The sealed envelope. His eyes, begging me to protect the truth when he couldn't. Where is my real son, Emily? She closed her eyes, trembling. I don't know. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. The house was quiet, but my mind was loud. Every second felt like borrowed time. Like I was living in someone else's skin, someone else's family. The next morning, I drove back to Jason's apartment. It was still locked up, dusty, abandoned. But this time, I brought bolt cutters and no hesitation. Inside, I found a map. A corkboard full of notes. Photos. Documents. Timelines. It was a conspiracy wall, messy and wild, but there was a center point. A name. Lila Kerrigan. Next to it, a file folder marked switched at birth, proof. I grabbed everything and drove straight to Katie. She skimmed through the paperwork like a lawyer on fire. Birth records. Blood type comparisons. Nurse rosters. Surveillance photos. Handwritten notes. And one DNA result, half torn but clear enough. Mason's DNA didn't match either of us. Not me. Not Emily. Katie took a deep breath. Okay. We need to find this Lila Kerrigan. She's the key. She's the one who had access to both babies that night. She's been missing for years. Katie frowned. She was off the grid. But not anymore. She pulled up her laptop and started digging like she was in court, hunting for a hostile witness. 15 minutes later, she had an address. A house just outside of Reno, Nevada. Registered to a Lila Kerrigan under her married name. I was already halfway out the door. Emily didn't want to come with me. Not because she didn't care, but because she was scared of what we'd find. Mason stayed with Katie. I drove 12 hours straight through the desert, every mile humming with tension. My hands gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. I got to Reno at midnight. Lila lived in a small farmhouse at the end of a long dirt road. I parked a block away and walked the rest. No lights. Just the stars and the sound of my heart. I knocked. A woman answered. Gray hair. Soft features. Tired eyes. Lila Kerrigan. She didn't answer. My name is Tom. My son was born at St. Mary's Hospital 8 years ago. You were the temp nurse. I need answers. She opened the door wider. You should come inside. The inside of the house was full of quilts and books. She made tea without asking. I didn't touch mine. I remember that night, she said finally, sitting across from me. 2 deliveries. Back to back. One baby had breathing trouble. The other had a birthmark on his shoulder. There was chaos. Are you saying the babies got switched? She looked at me, eyes heavy. I don't know for certain. But I had doubts. And when I tried to raise them, the hospital told me to stay quiet. Said I wasn't staff. Said it would complicate things. I should have pushed harder. But I was just scared. Do you know where my biological son is? She nodded slowly. He's with another couple. They think he's theirs. Raised him from day one. I swallowed hard. Do they know? No. Do you? She stood and walked to a shelf, pulled down a photo. A boy. 8 years old. Brown eyes. My smile. I kept tabs, she said softly. 4 years. Just in case. I didn't know what to do. I thought, maybe I'd go to you one day. But then Jason started asking questions. And then, he died. The silence swallowed the room. I stared at the photo, my chest tightening. This boy, my son. My blood. And then she said the name. His name is Caleb. I didn't tell Emily right away. I drove back in silence, the photo in my pocket like a weight. The world looked different now, sharper, more fragile. When I got home, I found her in Mason's room, reading him a story. He didn't know any of this. To him, the world was simple. Mom. Dad. Bedtime. But it wasn't simple anymore. Emily came into the kitchen when Mason was asleep. Well, I showed her the photo. She broke. And then I did. Because how do you tell a woman she gave birth to someone else's child and raised a stranger without ever knowing? How do you explain that your child is out there living someone else's life? We didn't take action right away. Katie advised against it. Courts. Custody battles. Emotional trauma. Mason was our son. Even if the blood didn't match. But a month later, we met Caleb. From a distance. At a playground. He laughed like I used to. Ran like I did at that age. Emily cried the whole ride home. We haven't told Mason yet. Not fully. He's too young. But one day, we will. And as for Caleb, he's growing up happy. I don't know what role I'll play in his life. Maybe just a shadow. Maybe more. But I know this much. Fatherhood isn't about DNA. It's about love. It's about choosing to stay, even when the story unravels. That letter under my door. It wrecked me. But it also revealed something bigger. Truth isn't a bomb. It's a mirror. And now, I finally see.